Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Indiana for the penultimate round of the RCI Sylvia series. Today we're at the 2.589 mile, 15 corner Indianapolis Speedway road course. Get your umbrellas and ponchos out, and welcome to the Brickyard. I'm Jack Mays, and joining me in the booth today is the always lovely Callum Kerrigan, and we are joined by our equally, but possibly even more lovely broadcaster, Ash Bibby. We have an hour of racing ahead of us, with what looks like 14 drivers all jockeying for victory in their BMW M2s. Callum, wake up, it's race day. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, thank you, Jack, and welcome to everyone watching on our Twitch and YouTube channels. It's my first time in the booth, sorry, for this season, Jack, and I have to say, like, I am an avid lover of this car. The BMW M2 and ACC is one of the most fun driving experiences I've ever had. Sprinkling these sort of wet conditions here, we're going to see a lot of BMWs, because a lot of them will be still running that 0TCs. We have Les with a perfect example there, back end stepping out. And then we have a little bit of a lower sign-up number for this particular race, and I'm calling everyone out today. You know, they see a bit of rain and they're like, oh no, don't fancy that one, we'll come back in for the final round. I'm wildly excited. BMW's M2s in the rain on a tight and twisty circuit like Indianapolis. This is going to be good fun.
Absolutely, I think it's going to be a bit of a circuit shake-up coming out of Zolder. It's a lot less chicanes and a lot more slow corners, but definitely looking for some loose end action from the race cars. And we're going to get right into it. Callum, race predictions. Who do you think?
Race predictions, Jack. I haven't been here for the past 3 weeks. I don't even know who's won the past few races. Of course, I'm completely joking there. It is
Andy Boardman.
It's hard not to say Andy Boardman, who I'm borderline convinced is one of the best people on this sim in the world in this BMW M2 car. He is absolutely dominant. But I will play devil's advocate. I'll throw in a rogue shout. I'm riding the Les Stevenson train today.
Ooh, you know, I will say Les has done some superior performances as far as strategy. I mean, he's sort of maybe not had great starts, gotten caught in a lot of traffic, but come to the 11th hour, everyone's boxing sort of final lap, second to last lap, and Les just goes, cool, I'm in like P7 right now, watch this, I'm on the podium. So I think he does a bit of a strategy call, does a bit of a good qualifying. I think he might do good. I like that as a sort of dark horse, but I'll be looking to see maybe if Nico Kumbu can finally get on the top step. He was pretty close last week. I think it was only 6 or so seconds at the end of the race, which compared to Andy Boardman is a very insignificant gap. It does sound like it, but it didn't feel like it.
Yeah, and judging by the times that we've seen sort of in the practice serve and prior to this qualifying session, Kumpu is looking like he does have a bit more pace compared to Andy Borman in this round that we've seen in previous rounds. He was topping that practice session. So whether he can sort of convert that into pace in this qualifying session and the subsequent race, we will have to wait and see. Interesting that you noted sort of Les' strategy last week, opting for sort of pitting. I believe he literally pitted lap 1 and sort of ran the rest of the race. Not really as available in the wet conditions, because predicting what sort of tyre pressure you're going to want throughout the rest of the race is going to be absolutely key in these conditions. You know, tyre pressure is on a knife edge on ACC in terms of getting performance out of it. So if his conditions change and he hasn't made the right gamble on sort of the tyres and the pressures in that earlier pit stop, that's just going to bleed him time. So it is probably a bit wiser for these drivers to run as long as they can before making their pit stop today.
I think you're absolutely right. And on the subject of pressures, I actually was in Mr. Why am I forgetting his name? I was sitting in a stream earlier before the race and heard the pressure window for these cars, apparently for the wet tires, is about 29 to 31 psi, which is a pretty large operating range as far as ACC. A lot of times it's like, all right, you maybe get half a psi to work with, and if you're outside of that window, you are not going to go very quickly. And I mean, I imagine people won't be taking tires at all, but granted, I'm not too familiar with wet tires in ACC, and we got a lot of rain. Cars are, I'm seeing 3 to 4 seconds slower than they were in practice session. Granted, tires are still coming up in temperature. People are still sort of getting a feel for what the rain's actually like, but I was seeing 54s, 53s in practice.
Yeah, as that sort of rain comes down, we will sort of see the time start tumbling down, and sort of, you know, the clearing of the water as these guys circulate the laps. More and more sort of rain will be leaving the circuit, naturally leading to faster lap times. It's all really about, in these conditions, being the last person to set the lap to get the best conditions possible. Tom Shipston currently leading the field, 156.8 at this stage, followed by Theo Roscoe. Interestingly, Boardman, who we're on board with now, and Kumpu, not yet set time.
Yeah, I've seen a couple cars go wide, go deep, and a couple people sort of maybe deciding to remain in the pits. I have a feeling that maybe we might get a couple of qualifiers. We're just going to start in the back. We're going to avoid the black one more like easy in the back. These are, pretty loose cars, and I can only imagine how much looser they feel in the rain. But I think you're absolutely right, Callum. Though it's going to be whoever qualifies last is going to theoretically have the absolute driest track, the absolute. Your pressures are going to be up to the perfect window. It's we'll see. About 6.5 minutes, remaining in our qualifying session. So I think honestly, anybody's game. Rain is the great equalizer after all.
Yeah, the great equalizer is when you really start to see some people that might be, lurking around the midfield start jumping up. Kevin Boss is definitely one of those people where when the rain starts falling, Kevin just seems to have sort of this ability in the rain to keep that car on track. And let me tell you from many experiences, if Kevin Boss is ahead of you, you just ain't getting past him. So I'm also giving Kevin a shout here for what could be a very strong result.
Yeah, and I bet he's looking for it. He actually ended up missing the last round. He wasn't here. He was out working, flying across the world as he tends to do. So I think he's looking to come back for a bang. And he was reasonably quick in practice compared to where you end up seeing him. He's sort of top 5 contention at least. Andy Boardman putting in the lap, and that is what's to beat. So far, 5 tenths ahead of Les Stevenson, who's in second. I think we're going to just start getting flurries of time, and I wonder if that truly is the measure of what these cars can do. I imagine it absolutely isn't. Every lap, these drivers are getting more confident, getting a little bit quicker. Circuit possibly drying out a little bit. That is a lot of rain coming down.
Yeah, and Andy Boardman doing that time with a massive slide in sort of the final corners of turns 14 and 15. So he's clearly got a lot more in the tank. We're now on board here with Kevin Boss, who is just coming through the final section of turns 12, turns 13. This is such a tight and tricky corner. You want to be on the power as early as possible, as you're essentially flat in the dry, maybe not quite in the wet. You can see that rear wanting to step out. He's holding it through turns 14 and 15 onto the back straight. Tried to not wash out into the wall, and he does, and he sticks it. Powers down into the finish line. Is he going to improve at that lap? That jumps to P4, 1.1 seconds behind Andy Boardman. A brilliant lap from Kevin Boss.
Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty stout and easy 7/10 improvement, as actually now Nico Kumpu has knocked Boardman off the top spot. As you were saying, he did have that slide, so there is time to be gained, but a pretty tidy lap from Kev, as we're going to stay on board with him for just another moment, just rolling it through turn 4, getting ready towards the funny little U section, which I am entirely unfamiliar with. I spent a little bit of time this morning getting ready for broadcast and couldn't find the right track map for this layout. I had to actually open ACC to figure out what the heck was going on. He's getting powered back through turn 7 onto the main straight. Use as much circuit as we can. Actually, I lied. We're on board with Marco Facciuto, as I've also learned that may be the pronunciation of the name, so further apologies to Marco for butchering your name for the last 3 weeks. Hopefully I'm getting it reasonably right. But now through the U section, obviously gonna go for. Oh wow! I was just wondering. He started to wash a bit wide and getting stuck in that grass. You're off. You're gonna be off circuit there. But it's gonna be a measure of keeping it between the lines today.
100% couldn't agree more. The second, sort of the priority, I think, for a lot of people here is just going to be keeping it on the track. You're going to gain so much from people's mistakes, as we're on board with Tom Shipston, up on his lap crossing the line. He's going to pip Les Stevenson to sort of P3 currently for this qualifying session. Les and Tom still with laps to circulate. One thing we haven't spoken about, Jack, is actually the brakes in these cars. For those people who haven't, driven these in ACC, they're diabolical on the brakes, to put it lightly. And it's actually where you sort of make up a lot of your time in the BMW M2 is in the braking phase. Really being able to trail brake effectively is where you make up the time, and this car does not like ABS. You are going to be bleeding time every time you hit that ABS marker. In fact, you'll find a lot of people in the setups running probably 80 or 90% brake power to ensure that they're not on the ABS. So that's going to be a really big factor, but something the drivers really have to contend with in these heavy, wet conditions. It's going to be a massive challenge and something that's massively different to what they've had in their completely dry sessions so far.
Yeah, I've heard from a couple drivers already about that there's only 2 settings of the ABS, and they wish that they could run it without it. But of course, then these cars will be fading, so they're going to run ABS only because they have to, as Andy Boardman does take the top spot again. It's 3/10 between him and Nico Kumpu. We're winding down towards the, everybody's probably on their final laps. A couple people choosing to box so far, but I think we might see a couple more shifts. I mean, Nico Kumpu definitely gonna be smelling a bit of a better lap time, maybe. Honestly, I mean, Pip Boardman at the top. I think what I'm hoping to look for today, as far as in the race, I think the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th cars, all of those guys looking pretty evenly paced in a lot of these rounds, looking pretty quick. Mike Redford especially choosing to not qualify often and starting from last place. He's doing that today, so it's going to be interesting to see how him, Stevenson, Shipston, and Roskam all drive with each other. Nico Kumpu crosses the line currently on provisional pole. Super tiny gap, but a super tidy lap.
Yeah, and crucially, he's got 25 seconds left to put in a final lap. Andy Boardman's also circulating. He'll get another lap as well, and crucially, will be on circuit for that little bit longer than Nico Kumpu coming through the boards. Sorry, forgive me, I lost where I was on track. This will be his final lap, his final chance, while Nico Kumpu still has 1 more lap left to go. He's coming around the final corner now, turns 14 and turns 15, just catching the rear end. You can just see it wanting to step out, keeps it clean, doesn't want to run into the wall as standard. foot absolutely to the floor as he crosses the line. Is he going to retake that P1? He does it by a mammoth margin. 3/10 there. Has Nico Kompu got that in the tank as he comes through the final sector?
Yeah, that's a big ask, right? That's a big ask for Nico. As right now we're on board with Tom Shipston rounding the final corner, turn 15, running that car as wide, getting on that power as early as he possibly can. We'll see as he. Sorry, I also got lost on circuit. Callum, you're not the only one. Did the exact same thing. He was actually at turn 12. He's now heading through the 14, 15 sort of section of circuit. It's gonna be one of our final guys to cross the line. It's actually up on his time by just a little bit. We'll see what it looks like as he can cross the line. Does he pip Roscam? He does by a fair margin, about 2/10. Oh, Kompu decided, I guess, bailed out of his lap. So that will be our qualifying order.
Yeah, bailed out on his lap, or potentially got track limits there as well. It is one of those tracks which are very susceptible to the track limits, particularly around the turn 8, 9, 10, and 11 areas, Jack.
Yep. That's, I imagine, so easy to do, not just in the dry, but also especially in the wet. But here's your qualifying order for the race. Andy Boardman is up on pole. Nico Kumpu in second. Tom Shipston third. Roscam fourth. Stevenson rounding out the top five. Redford qualifying sixth. Pimlott seventh. Hugo, Boss, and Varga rounding out the top 10. Fachuto, Foxhole, Meerman, Stevenson, and Malcolm being our bottom 5 spots. It was interesting to see that, I'll be honest, I was expecting a little bit more from Mike Redford. He's rapid in pace, but I think the rain might be getting the best of him.
Yeah, I mean, it could be anything, especially in sort of the qualifying trim. One tiny mistake, and this is such a momentum-based car, particularly in the wet. If you just have that slight sort of loss of the rear end or slight bit of understeer, it just bleeds time. This car is all about holding that mid corner and keeping that momentum going. If you just haven't got the flow, or you're just not quite comfortable in the car, especially in these conditions, maybe you are just a little bit off your game in qualifying, but one thing that we know Mike Redford and a lot of these drivers do is deliver far better in the race. So that's something I'm very much looking forward to. These guys tend to go a lot quicker in the race conditions and just improve lap on lap on lap.
Oh, for sure. I mean, track position is always super important, but in cup racing such as this, it's. I mean, the racing's going to be close, especially for the first couple of laps, and it's easy to make moves. They're in the wet. I mean, you can push a braking point just a little bit too deep, and I mean, if you make a mistake, there's other drivers that are going to be ready to take it from you. So now we look at our championship standings for the Sylvia series so far. Andy Boardman, as we've been talking, absolutely destroying it in the first 3 rounds, winning every race. Nico Kumpu in second place, closely behind, looking for his first win, hopefully today. Joe Dauber, third place. Tom Shipston with 144 points, looking, actually, I believe he's ridden fourth place in every race so far. T-Bot Roskamp, P5. Mike Redford in sixth. Les Stevenson, P7. We're looking for our little dark horse there to hopefully, try for a win. Maybe see him on the podium again today. Neil Pimlott in P8. Peter Varga, P9. And Hugo Doobie rounding out the top 10. Matt Malcolm starts us off in P11. Richard Meerman, P12. Mike Foxhole, P13. Marco Fachuto in P14. Ted Edwards, 15th. We're going to miss seeing him here today. Dominic Wojtek in 16th. Kevin Boss in 17th. Will Stevenson rounds out our, well, not necessarily point scorers, but he's got a number next to his name with Raphael Huel and Tessa Thurbley currently on the standings, but I don't know if they've appeared at a race quite yet. I've now been informed as everybody who has been signed out of the race. Hopefully, same for the final round. That'd be great. It'd be a nice stacked, almost 30 car grid if everybody shows up. So, drivers, if you're listening, show up next week. That'd be cool.
I'm sure they will. All the drivers are a little bit scared of the rain, Jack, have probably hidden away for this round. But obviously, we've got the final round of the championship at Valencia next week, and what will round out an incredible M2 championship. Just hopping into our YouTube chats, we actually got Mike Redford giving us some insider driver knowledge, confirming that last week it was intentional that he started from the back of the field, but allegedly, and I'm saying allegedly, it wasn't because he span on the formation lap that was missed by the cameras. So that's just allegations from the man himself. And he was just confirming there that the tyre pressures were quite low compared to what they were doing in practice, and that's most likely due to sort of there being a lot more rain on circuit. We're talking about the tyre pressures and having sort of that 29 to 31 psi window. But what we didn't mention there is how any sort of differing levels in rain really change that. So even though it does seem like quite an open window, if you go from that double lane rain to a single line rain, those pressures could be jumping up massively. Then you'll be way out of sort of that pressure window. So maybe that's something that sort of Mike Redford experienced during this session. I just want to give a quick shout out to this K-Boss livery. I've already messaged him personally about this. I think this is one of K-Boss's nicest liveries. Simple, clean, and just looks good. But Jack, you've been doing this season now for quite a few rounds. What's your favourite livery you see on the grid?
Honestly, I do think, partially because I actually got to race under a wheelie slow livery yesterday, I do think Kevin Boss's is actually my favorite, but I'm only slightly very biased about that.
Only slightly very, only slightly very biased indeed. I'm going to give a livery shout out to Les Stevenson, who's run an old livery when me and him were racing an M2 championship together. That's actually half his livery and half my livery that he's got in the car. But didn't opt to remove my face from the rear bumper, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a striking one. It's what I've been looking for. I do love a pink race car, and 50% pink race car is good enough for Stevenson. Still, I think that's who we're gonna be paying attention to all darn day, hoping for maybe a master stroke of strategy, or perhaps just being super quick. I want to see him back up on the podium, maybe step higher.
Yeah, step higher. It does seem sort of like the talk of the championship himself. Roscam and Shipston always locked into a battle. Throwing back to sort of Monza round 2, where they had that brilliant three-way fight, which I believe off the top of my mind, Roscam got the better of, and obviously Les clutching a P3, opting for an alternate strategy. Definitely going to see some action from those guys. I just want to give another shout out to actually Neil Pimblott, who I know does absolutely no practice for these races, just rocks up on time, and to put that car into a P7 is an incredible performance from him. K-Boss and Peter Varga, and for Shuto, again, another three-way fight there, which will be brewing all race long. It seems like those guys are always locked together on the racetrack. So there are definitely sort of a couple of battle packs here, Jack, which sort of, seeing the conditions, seeing what racetrack we're in, and seeing sort of a BMW M2 really is getting me quite excited for what we're about to experience for the next hour.
Yeah, that's sort of been a theme as long as I've been in this series, is like sort of packs start to form after the first couple laps. They spread out, but throughout the race there's always 1 car, 2 cars, sometimes 3 car lineups that are just chasing each other lap after lap, and hopefully the rain won't deter that level of close racing we've become accustomed to.
Absolutely not. As we're about to sort of see them go 2 by 2, it's worth noting that we have Matt Malcolm still in the pits, whether that's sort of opting to start from the pit lane, or he's had an issue with hardware and he's trying to sort that out. And I do think he has just actually hopped out of the race, so potentially an issue for Matt Malcolm. Very unfortunate. Sort of not an end to his race, not even a start to his race.
Yeah, it's super unfortunate. It seems like that's been, I think, just about every race we've had a technical issue for one of these drivers, which is never something you want to see. I think he's officially not going to be starting that race, but who is getting ready to start? Andy Boardman on pole. Probably just finishing up his pre-race prep, hoping he got those pressures high enough to where they needed to be so that turn 1 is a cinch. We're getting ready to go green here. 13 cars, a heck of a lot of rain in Indianapolis as we are green flag racing. Looks like Andy Boardman actually got a pretty slow start as we are 3, almost 4 wide going down to turn 1. Yeah, Andy Boardman already fallen back to P3. We'll see how it shakes out into turn 1. Nico Kumpu taking the desired line, taking P1. A little bit of bump on the outside there by Boardman, but this is a repeat of what happened at Misano. Nico Kumpu did take the lead in that race at turn 1. We'll see if he can fend him off for at least a few laps, if not the whole race.
Well, I do think this pace between these two front runners is extremely tight today, so this is going to be a really, really good fight for the lead. I just want to give an early shout out to Mike Redford. He was P6. It looks like he's just swooped all the way around the outside of maybe 3 cars and finds himself in P3 after lap 1. That's an incredible launch from Mike Redford, and the big loser really being Thibaut Roskam, who's now sitting in P6. So a brilliant start for Redford, a little bit of a fallback for Roskam, but what that does is it brings sort of that 3-way fight that we were theorizing into a 4-way fight. Mike Redford, an unbelievable start.
Yeah, it was a really good launch for Shipston. I think he lost a little bit there between the argy-bargy with Andy Boardman, but yeah, I mean, Mike Redford, he's got some good race starts, we'll be honest, a lot of times from the very back of the grid, and to see him up front already getting his elbows out, being like, you know what, let's not mess about, let's get after it here. I think Shipston's not going to take it idly. Oh, I believe that was Mr. Les Stevenson potentially opting for a lap 1. Yep, that is the classic Roker Poker strategy, the lap 1 box.
See, I'm going to disagree that the classic Roker Poker strategy, definitely something that he's adopting this season. But before that, this is actually like a classic Shipston or a classic Redford strategy. They always seem to go alternate and want to run that clear air. But as from last week, Les just seems to enjoy this hit lap 1, run with sort of no spray, which is something that we haven't spoken about, and sort of the spray in the background, and just run his race, do his laps, enjoy himself. He's looked at the weather radar, seen that the rain's not going to be going up or down sort of in intensity in the next half an hour, and he's gone for the risk. And you know, we could theorize who's going to be on the podium all race long, but we now won't know until everyone's boxed to where Les Stevenson rocks up at the end of this one.
That's been the beauty. Oh, that's Kevin Boss getting spun around there. Just got a little bit too close. Hugo Doobie did into turn 6. That's unfortunate, but what I was just about to say is that's been the fact. That's kind of been how it's been this season, all race long, where honestly we're not 100% sure who's going to be on the podium. Honestly, the top 3, 4, 5 cars, because most of the front runners wait for the last laps to box. But super unfortunate for Kevin Boss. We know he's quick in the rain, and maybe that's, you know, some clear air, a bit of a reset for him, a forced reset, mind you. But who knows? I think Kev can get his head back down, and just as I'm saying that, I think he may have just parked it, but hopefully not. Hopefully he keeps racing. Yeah, I mean, that's just a bit unfortunate. It's pretty easy to do in the wet. You just overshoot, you misjudge corner entry being that close to another car, and you just slide a bit deep and, you know, kick another guy in the back. But fortunately, Kevin Boss has continued driving.
Yeah, very unfortunate incident, and one thing for the stewards to take a look at. Obviously, they didn't have a lot of incidents to look at in lap 1. We had a relatively clean lap 1, but guarantee they'll be looking at that Kevin Boss and Hugo Doobie incident. Very unfortunate. Kevin Boss is one of the quickest and most consistent people we have here on RCI. So, you know, no doubt it was going to be a good result for him, but it looks like he's going to go in for the box, have that mental reset, put on, get the fuel to the end, and just see where he can end up in this race. Definitely not the last we've heard of him.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this, hopefully, I mean, he's got hopefully what seems to be the right strategy, as we've seen from Les, but if he keeps his pace up, maybe stays out of traffic a bit and just pushes for the rest of the race, we should be seeing things, as we're already seeing a bit of a pack starting to form, those individual packs. We have the Kumpu Boardman, we have the Redford Shipston, we have the Doobie Varga, and the Fashuto Foxhole, just all packs of 2, just racing hard. But I will say, super impressed with Nico right now, already going ahead and putting a second ahead of Andy Boardman.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's going to want, just sort of keep extending that as much as possible. Something I do just want to quickly point out, Les Stevenson taking a second trip in the box. I'll be interested to see if something's happened there with this race, whether he's gone off or maybe miscalculated fuel, so having to go in for another lap. But it looks like we're not going to get sort of the Les Stevenson undercut that we've been seeing this season. He's now in the box, coming out in the pits, and probably has to immediately start giving way to sort of cars because he's going to be lapped. So a very unfortunate incident that's happened here with Les. I do wonder if we'll get a sort of a word from him a bit later as to what's happened, as we now on board with Tom Shipson and Mike Redford. Mike Redford going defensive into turn 1, just covering that basis, and that's all we really need to do into that turn 1, is just cover that inside line, make sure we get to the apex first, and you usually can hold it through this first sector. So Shipton maybe after a few attempts into lap 1 might think, right, we need to get a bit creative here. If I was him, I'd be filling up those wind mirrors and trying to force a mistake this early in the race.
Yeah, it's a bit of a role reversal. I mean, Mike Redford last week at Zolder, he was the guy to fill up mirrors. It's actually Tom Shipston getting a bit of the inside line coming through turn 6. 7, though, is a right-hander. I think we're going to see a drag race down to turn 8. Shipston using absolutely all of the asphalt that is on this circuit. And they're going to be carrying it too wide. Shipston is on the inside for this next corner. This might be moved on if he gets his braking point right. But Redford not giving any room. He does actually decide to tuck back in, not keep his car there, especially in the wet. That level of close racing in the wet, it's too wide for these twisties, can definitely get a bit sketchy. But great moves from Tom Shipston.
Yeah, brilliant move and well defended there by Mike Redford. He defended as long as he could, but after sort of the whole of sector 1 and going into all the way into turn 8 and turn 9, then he had to relinquish the pace to Tom Shipson, who's clearly got a bucket load of pace in that M2 at this stage. Looking forward to see if he can get any inroads on Andy Bourne. We've got Peter Varga trying to make a move into turn 14. That's a tight spot on Hugo Doobie there. Hugo Doobie allowing him the space, being able to stay ahead through turns 15, and we'll live to see another day. But we'll see if Peter Varga can get a run into turn 1. I do think he might just be a touch far back at this stage, but will he get the run into turn 1? He's having a look on the inside, trying to fill the mirrors, but Hugo Doobie doesn't budge an inch, sticks to his normal racing line, and it is line astern for Hugo Doobie and Peter Varga.
Man, we're getting some really solid racing so far in these first 10 minutes, but we actually have a special guest with us. Matt Malcolm is joining us in the box. We're gonna call him the M2 racer extraordinaire himself. He actually has been driving in this championship. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm going to interject into there. That is very misleading. Very misleading of me. I'm not an extravagant or anything like that. But no, yeah, it's been fun racing so far. I've had a little bit of connectivity issues with the server today, but other than that's not been an issue. But certainly, what is going to be an issue here is for Peter Varga trying to defend against Doobie. Of course, them two fought very well through at Zolder as Peter Varga goes through the S curves there. Just trying to build the gap up and trying to remove the toe there, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Varga's done pretty well to actually get ahead of Doobie. I think we've just seen the result of the Doobie Punterino on Kevin Boss. That's that 5-second. Actually, now just ticked up to a 10-second penalty from the stewards there. But Matt, I think you are underselling yourself. Keep pointing that. Let me go by Malk. I'll get there. I apologize. But I think you're underselling yourself. You are our devoted, wonderful M2 correspondent though today? You know these cars, at least in this season, better than Callum and I do, for sure.
I mean, the cars haven't really changed all that much since they first came in. I mean, when you go for a spec series like this, it's all pretty good to. It's all pretty good to have, especially as I mentioned before. Obviously, as I just said 2 seconds ago, with it being a spec series, everything's equal, everything's on simple terms, so it's quite easy to see who's sort of the better driver when it comes to handling the less characteristics of the aerodynamics of the, like when you would compare it over to a GT3 or even a GT2, for example. But I mean, for the most part, they're relatively easy and fun to drive. I will admit. I think Callum can agree to that. Yeah,
Oh yeah, I've already expressed my profound love for this car. This and the Ginetta is my absolute love, as we've just seen Peter Varga make a mistake, and where he previously got past Hugo Duby, who by the way is now sitting on a 10-second penalty for the Kevin Boss incident. He now finds himself behind again, but trying to have a little bit of a lunge into turn 8. Is he going to make that stick? I think he does. Very slow on the apex. Hugo Duby has to almost back out as he turns into the corner and finds a Peter Varga there. So Varga making a bit of a mistake in sort of the twisties of turns 5 and 6, but immediately correcting that and getting past Hugo Duby.
Yeah, Varga's showing some pretty proper pace. He's actually been quite quick in this series so far. But what we are here to look forward to at the most, Andy Boardman took that gap that was, around a second, and he just cut it down 8/10 down, and now he's right on the bumper of Nico Kumpu. But good news for Nico, he's actually getting a bit of a tow from Les Stevenson right now into turn 1. Doesn't even need to bother defending, as Ash Bibby is making noise in my ear. All right, Malk, since you've seen these guys better than we have on track, well, maybe not seen them, you've sort of known that they were in the distance, because boy, these two are quick. What do you think between this battle? How do you think this is going to shake out?
it really depends on how well this the next, say, 20 minutes or so goes by. But for the most part, I think Nico Kumpu has a really good spot in trying to defend, especially when it comes to a track like this and conditions like this. You just need to be very careful with, like, for example, when you have to try and go into a late lunge or anything like that, especially if you're following the cars. We saw from there at turn 4, Andy Boardman took a little bit of a touch onto Kumpu's rear bumper, so it's just trying to manage the pace to keep yourself behind, and when you find the right opportunity, go for it, but you just need to make sure you're not taking anybody out.
Yeah, it seems like pace management and keeping it between the white is the most important thing so far today, and I think, well, it's true for just about this entire season. Callum, how are you feeling, buddy? You're a bit quiet over there.
I'm enjoying the racing, Jack. That's why I'm quiet. Calling me out like that, unbelievable. But no, I'm very much enjoying it. Good to see Kevin Boss still going after his sort of incident, as well as a potential issue with hardware. We saw him obviously pulling over. Les Stevenson's had 2 issues, and he's still in the race. So it's good to see these guys tough it through for sort of the all-important championship points. I will say, when it comes to the lead battle, Andy Boardman clearly the faster driver currently with the purple lap. But Nico Kumpu is in prime position. He's in front of Andy Boardman, and this is a very, very challenging track to overtake. You almost need to force the issue. You're not going to do it on pace alone at this stage. So I'm definitely favouring Kumpu at this point, but it does beg, like, how is Andy Boardman feeling today? Does he want to get this done on track, or is he going to opt for maybe an undercut strategy, go in a little bit early and try to get the undercut, or call Kumpu's bluff on that as well? It looks like, with his attitude at the minute right on the bumper of Nico Kumpu, it looks like he's come to play and come to fight today.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that, following one car, being a little bit quicker in lap time is one thing, but overtaking, especially around the circuit, especially in these conditions, are something else entirely. On the strategy note, though, Kumpu and Boardman have done, I believe, the exact same thing in every single race so far. At least every single race that I've been here to commentate. They have pitted one behind the other penultimate lap. And let's say we skip 40 minutes from now and it's exactly like this. Boardman's going to be forced to make a choice. he can't pit in behind him, mind you, because overtaking in the pit lane when you're both going to be taking the exact same amount of fuel is going to be near impossible. So I think he's going to have to do it on track. Malk, if you could pick a corner, where would you most like to make a move on Nico Hülkenberg if you were Andy Boorman?
There's plenty of places for it. But you know, with Andy Boorman, he likes to do it when you least expect it. So turn one is easy, but of course you need to get the braking point right, because you can just drive straight into the grass afterwards. If I go by what Andy Boorman's standards are and what he likes to do by surprising his opponents, I think he might try and go for like a one, like the curves as we come up to here through turns 3 and 4. But it can also be like as easy as places down on the main straight or in the back straight. So it's just a matter of like where does Andy Boorman get the run? Where does he get that time in order to then make a move? Like we see here, he's just trying to go a little bit closer, but he's just trying to set himself up a much better line. This is what I'm talking about here. He's just trying to find a much better line, and it's just the curves. He finds his way around the corners and the bends compared to everybody else.
Yeah, that was sort of an impressive spot and an impressive mid-corner pace from Boardman. I mean, I don't know if that's Kumpu's line exactly, or maybe he washed out just a tad, but we've seen a couple cars take a couple of different lines through turn 6. It's seemed to be not exactly where I would have expected, just thinking about this race, for close fighting to be happening, but it seems like a lot of these drivers in these conditions are favored. One guy washes wide. Hey, there's a gap there on the inside of that corner. If I can get my foot around, maybe I get my foot down. Sorry, it's maybe I make my corner entry a bit wider. That can make it happen. Callum, what do you think?
Sorry, we'll interject here. Andy Boorman going far too deep, hitting the barriers onto the little foam barriers, I should say. But here we go, just going around a little bit too deep and into the grass there. That's going to cost a lot of time for Andy Boorman if he was to try and make his way up again, because now that's the gap. Even then, the gap's over to what, 6/10? Or no, it's just refreshed now to 1.5 seconds. So he's just lost a full second just on that simple mistake there. So it might cost him dearly, guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a bit surprising, seeing sort of the faultless Andy Boardman so far in this championship. I mean, make a mistake, and it wasn't like he was necessarily trying to go for a dive there. He was maybe pushing his braking point while he was alone to see maybe how deep he could go, maybe setting up a move, but he kind of shot himself in the foot there just a bit.
Yeah, I completely agree. Very, very uncharacteristic to see a mistake from Boardman, as it would be if we saw a mistake from Kumpu. It seems like Boardman was trying to get in the mirrors of Nico, trying to force that area. That's definitely what I thought we saw through turns 5 and 6, where he took a little bit of a wider entry to have a quicker mid-corner, which is why he gained so much through that sort of turn 6 and 7 complex. But in trying to fill up those wind mirrors, he's just missed his braking point a touch and made that mistake himself. Previously 1.5 seconds behind. It looks like that hasn't slowed him down a bit, and he's now all the way back to a 1.2 second gap. So clearly still the faster driver on track at this stage, but struggling to get past in these conditions on this racetrack. It's going to be an arse with these guys being so close in pace.
Yeah, I think we're going to be in it for a long haul as far as this fight. As we're just seeing, I mean, Boardman in that free air, he does have that pace, but it's the tale is all this time. Catching is one thing, overtaking is something entirely different. So we're coasting around now. Not coasting, we're absolutely flying. It's just a bit wet, so these cars aren't going quite as quick as they could with Mike Redford. He had a stopping start to his race, but it's just sort of started to fall back a little bit. But Roscam has closed that gap already, lap after lap. It's just now down to 1 second. I think we have a fight just brewing just a bit.
Yeah, we've seen these gaps between sort of P3 and 5 sort of ebb and flow. Shipston massively quick in sort of the opening laps, getting that move on Mike Redford done. Getting that 2.5 second gap quite early on in the race but then hasn't really been able to stretch his legs any more than that. So the slightest issue from Tom Shipston is going to bring Mike Redford right into contention, whereas sort of Ross Cam has been sort of ebbing and flowing inside that 1 second mark, dropping back a little bit. But that's just, again, testament to these conditions where the slightest mistake, the slightest slide, it's going to bleed lap time against these guys. And, you know, it is massively important, really, to drive as fast as you can, but this race is going to be about who is the most consistent on the racetrack. One slide from any of these guys could lose a position or a two depending on where they are on the racetrack. And we say that a little bit of a commentator's curse. Mike Redford going wide, and that's immediately brought Ross Cam into the fray through turn 9 and through 10. Mike Redford needs to just settle himself down, make sure he hits this apex absolutely perfectly, as we now have a bit of a sort of a straight run. Well, not a straight run, but you are full throttle through this section into the braking point of turn 13, and that's an early indication there to signal, look, I'm about to pit here. I want a bit of a mental reset. I'm going to box now. You do your thing. Don't try to overtake me. I'm coming into the box. And I believe he is going to immediately. There he is. Diving into the box is Mike Redford after that tiny mistake there. Ross Cam now with a bit of clear air. It'll be interesting to see how this pans out as we get to the end of the race.
I'm wondering if you know, that slide and some of his mistakes maybe been due to tire pressures. Maybe he's deciding to hit now, try to change them if he can, try to adjust them, or he's just maybe needs that reset, needs that moment, knowing that the earlier stops tend to sort of be more favorable in these races. Tiba Roskam ultimately just going, well, thank you very much. I think I was gonna try to take it from you whether you did or didn't box, but made it a little bit easier. That's a clear track in, you know, 4.5 seconds to hunt down Shipston. I think Roskam's got it in him. We've seen quite a bit of pace from this driver. He's among our quicker guys, usually getting a bit losing it a bit in strategy when it comes down to race finishes.
Yeah, and in and around Tom Shipston is his fundamental fighting power in this championship. But what that's done is obviously broken up that pack a little bit. So a 4.5 second gap now between Roskam and Shipston. Our closest battle on track at this stage actually being between P9 to P11. That's Foxhole Fisciuto and Meerman there. It's the closest fight that we currently have on track. Fisciuto taking a bit of a wider line through turn 6 to maybe try and position himself better for turn 7, or to try and get this exit into turn 8. So battles happening up and down the field at this stage.
Yep, I mean, it's the classic Sylvia series, at least for this season. It's just, you know, packs of cars start to form. Racing seems to go down at its best sort of anywhere on the field. Certain drivers, you know, whether it's, you know, pace versus pace, whether it's one guy that makes a mistake that brings others into contention, it's been stellar. I'm most impressed by just these drivers keeping the cars together, keeping them quick, and keeping it on circuit. If I was here, I would have already spun about 60 times and would have DNF'd for the race.
Yeah, absolutely. These conditions are immensely challenging, especially sort of, you know, a lot of these guys will be running sort of no TC on these cars, so really feathering the throttle. And, you know, you drive this sort of M2 car very much, you know, like you would a car with no ABS, and like a car with no traction control, really feathering sort of the inputs in and out of these corners. So again, one missed input and these guys are going to be, you know, right behind each other once again. It's all about not making the issues through this race.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fisciuto here is eyeing up Foxhole and just sort of thinking, you know, I've seen him maybe go a bit wide, misses lines just a bit. I think let's just try and force a mistake, of course. And that seems to be the ideal way for these cars to get past one another. I mean, the toe isn't all that strong. The, you know, braking distance, it's tough with the braking in these cars in general to get an overlap, you know, to go for a dive. And but I mean, Marco just is now sort of having to look in his mirrors, Meerman, closing in. Mirman doing a bit of a weave, sort of being like, "Hey, I'm here. You've been looking forward. Now it's time for you to look back because you guys aren't going quick enough for me. I wanna join the fight."
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly what we've been talking about. Prosciutto just going a bit wider again in sort of turn 6 to what I'm theorising has a better setup for turn 7, making that slight error, washing out a tiny bit, immediately put Meerman back into contention. And now we've got sort of a line of stern here. 1 second to P9 of Prosciutto, 1 second to Meerman. And he's clearly a lot more confident under braking there, gaining a lot in sort of the braking zone of turn 13, coming now into 14 again. Prosciutto just a little bit wide there, missing the apex, and it does seem like Meerman is just getting in his head at this stage of the race, like catching consistently corner by corner at this stage in the race. And what that does to someone sort of being chased, I mean, I'm speaking here from personal experience, but I absolutely crumble. And for Prosciutto, it's all about just keeping his nerve, not worrying too much about the car behind, but maybe he should. He goes into the wall there a little bit late under braking, having to correct himself under the brakes and opting to go towards the wall, trying to save him from not taking out another drive. But Meerman, we said he was more confident on the brakes, and he just didn't adjust his braking point there behind a car, and ultimately has paid the price. That's going to be a bit of damage there on the front left-hand side of the car.
Yeah, I've got to say that was pretty impressive, sort of tapping the wall in order to slow down just enough not to actually run into Prosciutto, as Prosciutto goes deep, goes wide, and goes into the grass and spins it at turn 6. Oh, he sees this competitor behind him make a mistake. He breathes his own sigh of relief, and I think relaxes maybe just a little bit too much as turn 6 has its newest victim. I think it's sort of where a lot of close racing, a lot of distance closing has been done, but I had a feeling the nature of the corner and the nature of the wetness on this circuit would catch a few people out, as we see. Fortunate for Marco.
Yeah, Prosciutto once again taking that wider line through turn 6 to set him up for 7, but paying the price this time, just running a bit too wide, going off sort of the optimal racing line. Once you get off that racing line, the grip just gets worse and worse, and ultimately watched out, leading into a bit of a spin. Now 7 seconds behind Meerman, and ultimately around 10 to 11 seconds behind someone who he was chasing for position in Vauxhall, but gutting there for Prosciutto, whether he'll take a box to sort of have a bit of a mental reset, but either way he's got to get his head down. He knows he's quick than or compared to the cars around him. Just needs to put his head down and try to get back on the back of these guys.
I think the only sign of relief is that he knows that Meerman is carrying a bit of damage. I mean, he watched him go into the wall. He watched him almost go into the back of him, but Vauxhall just pretending that nothing behind him happened, and he's like, all right, cool, doesn't matter. I'm good up here. I didn't do anything too terrible so far. Let's just keep it going. That gives me a lot more time and a lot more empty track just to keep it going. And now we're back with Andy Boardman, who this battle's been a little bit quiet. Boardman, seeming to after his mistake as he drives past the crumbles of the turning board that he so rudely slammed, destroyed after his turn 1 late break, or sorry, not his turn 1 late break. But I think this fight's going to be going on for a while, as now Ash Bibby is queuing the most important segment of today's race. Callum, I know you've been looking forward to this. We're going to be talking about ketchup, all right? Malik, I'm glad you're here too. You can give us your 2 cents. We're going to get rolling with the top 5 ketchups according to Google, and then we're going to sort of, discuss how we feel afterwards. Number 1, to be honest, no one's too surprised. Heinz, a consistently top-ranked brand. Its classic tomato ketchup is known for its balanced flavor and smooth, glossy texture. I feel like the stunned silence here speaks for itself. We'll keep it rolling at number 2. Annie's a high rated organic option that reviewers often praise for its good taste. Actually, as we're saying that, Andy Boardman closing the gap just a bit, but not too much to deter me from talking about ketchup. Number 3, Hunts. another widely available brand that appears on many taste lists, although specific rankings may vary. How are we feeling so far, boys? Are we sort of in agreement with the list? Are we wishing that I would shut up and talk about race cars? How we feeling?
I've never had ketchup in my life.
I don't believe you.
Therefore,
Just to
I
let you,
can't rate.
just to let you guys know, Ash Bibi just extremely loudly said "what" on the on his side of the broadcast, just to give you the impact of this conversation.
I simply cannot believe my ears right now. I think we need a live video, Callum Kerrigan ketchup taste test. I simply don't believe it. For the moment, I think we're gonna peek down at Andy Boardman versus Nico Kumpu. He's closing it in a bit by bit, and I think maybe the next couple corners, maybe the next couple laps, we'll see him start to go for his move here.
Yes, exactly. So, but as we hit our halfway point, what better way before we talk about ketchup is we talk about the amazing partners that have been rolling on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Of course, IMB Racewear with all your gloves and teamwear. You can all go into one-stop shop for all your apparel needs. Obviously, if you want to get fast, you better get yourself faster with Coach Dave Delta, one of the leading sim setups for all variety of simulations, from Gran Turismo 7 to, I said, of course, the competition, all the way to Le Mans Ultimate. They have everything that you need to elevate your racing needs to the next level, and with their AI feature as well, you can find out exactly where you need to be in order to get yourself up to the pros as well. Top of that as well, we're also to get yourself fast. You also might want to get yourself a flashy wheel and base through with Moza Racing. Honestly, probably a great company when it comes to their sim hardware needs, especially with their more recent expedition into the sim flight category as well. As a flight man myself, as well as Callum Kerrigan being an aviation enthusiast himself, you can get yourself some really nice goodies in our partner link below. Also got Green Man Gaming with all your games needs. You can be able to get your games at a nice discount, all of that, as well as Ready Set Sim. Because at the end of the day, where are you going to house your sim? What better way to be on it than through Ready Set Sim, as they can able to customize and build all your rigs up to everything that you need and require. And of course, we want to give it a massive shout out to sorry, I keep forgetting. It's Motorsports UK Esports. That's the one that keeps slipping from my tongue. I'll give a massive shout out to them, as we are a recommended community. So, again, thank you to all of our partners that are evolving in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen.
Malk, you're such a pro. But also, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you pull me away from
I wanted to give a little shout out before we start diving into the debate of the season.
Oh, okay. So we're still gonna go back to. Okay, this is good news. I thought you were trying to get me to stop talking about ketchup. But yes, thank you again to all of our partners. Thank you for shouting them out. They're all great. We love them. And who we don't love at the moment is Callum Kerrigan. What do you mean you've never had ketchup?
I was obviously joking. I'm just hard objecting to ketchup talk at this stage in the race, Jack, as we do have Andy Bourman 4 tenths behind Nico Kumpu at this stage in the race. This is the closest he has been since that mistake, and he's actually coming up to that corner now in sort of turn 13. Will he make the same mistake? No, he was a bit more safe on the brakes there, but you can see Nico Kumpu going a little bit wide on the exit of turn 13 there, clearly feeling the heat of Andy Bourman at this stage.
Yeah, I think I don't know if Nico's sort of maybe it could be a difference if he's sort of managing his pace a bit. It could be maybe he's got his tires a bit overpressured or maybe a bit underpressured, but he seems to have fallen off a bit on pace. I mean, Andy Bourman's absolutely been flying the past couple of laps, but it's still the same story. Boardman does actually have to get past him on this circuit. That's not easy, even in the dry, if it weren't. soaking wet, which it so obviously is.
No, it certainly is. I think probably the best way, sorry, I'm just interjecting on your point there. I think the best way for, like, say, Boardman to get past on to Nico Kampu is probably just taking the strategy and just trying to either undercut or overcut Nico Kampu, because at the end of the day, he's got the pace. He's got the pace of what he needs. It's just trying to get the actual proper overtake done. It's a slow car ahead. I don't know who that was. I think it's 31 of Kevin Boss. I think he's just taking a quick spin up ahead. But other than that, I think with these two guys here, it's just a matter of just trying to play out the strategy game.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think strategy may decide this race if Nico Kampu can keep it faultless, which he pretty much has up to this. I mean, a couple of going just a tad wide, a couple going a bit deep, but ultimately keeping it on pace and keeping it on circuit. But I think right now this race might be decided on track.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what Andy Boardman wants at this stage of the race. You know, he's going for a season sweep here at this. Well, you know, he's going for the 4 out of 4, and actually coming up to a bit of traffic, which could play a part in this. This is the closest Andy's been. Is he going to get the slipstream with that rear end just stepping out through turn 15? I don't know how he managed to hold on to that. Kevin Boss exiting stage right, letting these guys go straight through, but this is the closest he's been down into turn 1, but not gaining anything on the slipstream into turn 1. That's just echoing how difficult it is to overtake on this track. But Jack, my question to you is, if you put yourself in Andy Boardsman's shoes, you know, we're 3 for 3 at the minute for the season. Are you wanting to get 4 out of 4, or are you just wanting to bank points here today for the championship? You know, a season-long sweep here for Andy Boardman would be a huge achievement if he went on to win this and get 5 out of 5 next week.
You know, if I truly was in this position, which believe me, I've never been in, I rarely ever win any races, even a race against myself. But if I was Andy Boardman, I think right now I would be sort of sitting back and being like, you know what, let's not go for any silly dives. Let's just stay in the mirrors. Let's force a mistake. If that mistake happens, great, take the position. But otherwise, let's just bring this thing home. I mean, we're already a little over halfway into this race, and at this point, it's, you know, see Andy Boardman just going a little bit wide there, managing to actually keep that car, you know, pointing in a straight line. That's mighty impressive, having one tire on the track, or one tire on the grass, and keeping that thing going. It's, I think, for him, and I think if it worked for me, let's bank those points. Let's Nico honestly deserves it at this stage, and he doesn't deserve to be maybe punted if things go really.
Yeah, as we see, I think a mistake there from the 256. Nico Kampu's made a mistake into turn 13, and now that's brought Andy Boardman right back into play, Jack. That's unbelievable. Boardman clearly pushing and, you know, forcing his own mistakes. He finally gets a crack in the Nico Kampu armor, and this is now the closest he has been coming into turn 1 once again. Looking at the outside, is he going to make a late move into the inside? He has a little look into the braking zone, tries to see if a gap is left for him. It isn't, just about squeezed out by Nico Kampu, but that's the closest he has been all race long to getting that P1, and finally there is a crack in the Nico Kampu armor.
You know what? I think, throw away everything I said. Andy Boardman's going for this win. He wants the 4 for 4. He wants the hopeful 5 for 5. I mean, he is getting his fangs out there, having a little bit of a tap on the rear of Nico Kampu, actually, and fortunately not sending him off and sort of forcing off the line. But the mistakes are starting to come. I think the cracks are starting to show for both drivers. I mean, they've been hammering it for 40 minutes now through this rain. And must I say, I'm a bit jealous of Kevin Boss right now. He has got the absolute best seat in the house for this fight.
The best seat in the house, indeed. While we just are talking about this sort of fight for the lead, I do just want to quickly jump to something that we didn't notice. Hugo Doobie had the 10-second pit stop for, you know, the incident they had earlier with Kevin Boss, but has dropped a number of places. So I do wonder if there's been a separate incident that we haven't captured here, which has dropped Hugo Doobie behind Les Stevenson, who we of course know has taken 2 pit stops in this race. So that's not something I would have expected in terms of where his positioning would have been. So that's very interesting. Kevin Boss having some connectivity issues, but still rejoining the server to finish the race and getting those points in the bag.
Yeah, I mean, with the lesser setups that we have, I think the right thing to do is just go ahead and finish this thing. And I mean, hats off to Kevin Boss for not throwing in the towel, as it would be so unbelievably easy to do. But another mistake on that last lap from Boardman, him going a bit deep into turn 13, seems to be that's his, I guess, preferred mistake area. Which, to be fair, he made it work. He only lost a couple tenths here and there, but he is properly now on the charge.
Yeah, probably now on the charge, and probably fueled by every mistake that he's making in this race to try and get back onto the rear of Nico Kumpu. To be honest, I'm absolutely shocked, Jack, that none of those guys has boxed yet in this race. Andy Boardman clearly wanting to get this done on track, and it's most likely that we will see this come down to the final lap, final maybe 2 or 3 laps, where both of them come into the box and it's decided by who is better on the brakes into the pit board marker, making sure you don't speed over that sort of pit line marker, as those sort of details when we're fighting, within a second here for the lead, those details of being absolutely on the money into the pits are really going to matter. And not only sort of pit entry on this racetrack, but that sort of long run and then into sort of the exit of turn 1 coming out the pits is also absolutely crucial. And we could really see this decided by absolutely hair-thin margins, all in sort of how they've been practicing the pit lane. So it's a really interesting dynamic to bring into what is only an hour race, but with how close these guys are, it's going to come into maybe even a meter or a meter either way into a braking zone, into a pit lane.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Boardman right now, it is going to be determined by those fine margins, but that's only if there's going to be an offset on who boxes first. I mean, Kumpu knows he's going to box final lap. He's been watching Boardman do it all season and knows that it works. I mean, it's obviously been successful, and I think Boardman now is in that tricky position of, I think I have the pace. I mean, I know for most of this race, outside of the mistakes that he's made, that he has the pace to be quicker. It's just, all right, what do we do now on strategy? Or is it just follow him into the pits and sort of, then try to finish it out on track?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jack. And another, I guess, pit stop battle that I'm looking forward to is the Mike Redford, Tom Shipston, and Ross Cam battle that we have, where, Mike Redford opted for that early box after a little bit of a mistake that brought Ross Cam into the fight with him. All of them around 2-3 seconds away from each other. But it's clearly been, driving well, putting in some consistent laps. Currently sits in P6 and the highest out of the pitted runners. Where he comes out is something I'm very, very interested in. If he's got a sort of a better lap time on Shipston throughout the stint, we could be looking at a first podium this season for Mike Redford.
I think you might be right on the money. Redford's sort of opting for that earlier stop. It's almost like you could take Mike Redford's name, replace it with Les Stevenson, and we can go back to any race in this season. And that's how he's ended up on the podium. Take that early stop, drive in that clean, clean empty track. Don't have to deal with traffic. Don't have to deal with overtaking. And well, I mean, mistakes be damned. I think he is going to end up on the podium today.
Yeah, it's interesting too if you see that the sort of the lap times as we now on board with Les Stevenson again, having sort of that early stop and then a second stop. Not really sure the reasoning why. We'll see if we can get that post race. But running in sort of P11 has managed to solve the pit Hugo Duby and Kevin Boss, so not going to be running last in this race at this stage and just trying to cling on as much points as he can. I believe he's currently sort of sitting around mid-pack in the championship, around P7, and these are crucial points to his championship rivals, sort of the Neil Pimlott, Mike Redford, and the Roscam and Shipston area. So that mistake that sort of cost him in the second stop is going to be sort of crucial for his championship challenge, noting that he actually scored 0 points through a retirement in round 2.
Yeah, I was there. That was my first round at Mazzano, and I don't exactly remember what happened. I know that there was one driver that got about 15 million penalties and decided to park it there, but I don't think that was Les Stevenson. It doesn't sound like something he would do. But right now, he's not thinking about any of that. He's actually thinking about Foxhole, who's just ahead of him. He's clearly Stevenson has the pace, and it's going to be a drag race down to turn 8. They're sort of shifting, trying to decide where he wants to be. Obviously, inside lines preferred. If he can be later on the brakes, he is just about, and Foxhole just doesn't seem to want to fight that too hard, knowing that Stevenson is mighty quick, and it's better to, live to survive another corner than go for a tricky bit of defending in these tricky conditions.
Yeah, Les Stevenson up into the P10 position, and with a sort of an interesting move there, was on the outside coming out of turn 7, opts to switch to the inside for he wasn't previously looking at the outside of turn 8 and then opted to switch in the inside, noting that going around the outside of turn 8 would be an outrageous move. So making the decision there was a little bit brave on the braking, and in all honesty, just absolutely mounted the curb through turn 8. So when we say he hit an apex, he drove through it in order to get that position on Foxhole.
I mean, it gave us a bit of a show, and I'm sure in his head I am not 100% sure whether Foxhole is going to try to take this move back around. Let's give him the most amount of space on the outside as possible. And I mean, if to do that, you got to go over a couple curbs. But a tidy recovery drive from Stevenson as he had to deal with his extra pit stop that to me looked a bit like it was a drive-through. I don't know if he actually had stopped again. We didn't see a drive-through, a DT appear on the board, but sure, we'll get an answer for that at some point, as now we're down to only 5 cars that have yet to stop. We're back on board with the Italian Marco Fasciuto, who's had a bit of a tricky race, we'll be honest. A lot of fighting, forcing a big spinny mistake in turn 6, but running currently P7, but having that stop looming overhead. I'm thinking, he's thinking, we're just gonna do it on the final lap, like the leaders have done. If it seems to work well for them, so we may as well do something similar.
Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit of development in the P3 battle. Tom Shipson has come in for his box and actually come out 12 seconds ahead of Mike Redford. So the Redford undercut hasn't worked for his battle for P3, but wherever he's held on for sort of a net P4, we'll have to look for when the about Roscam boxes, as Tom Shipson just dealing with a little bit of lapped traffic. We're actually having a bit of a theorising session, Jack, in sort of our comms chat here as to what happened to Les. Couple of theories floating around that he may have started on the dry tyres, but I don't think that explains the second box. I think what's happened is a very honest mistake, and definitely one that Les has made in the past, and most certainly myself, is he went for the early box, he went for the pit stop early that he did in Zolder that obviously got him that podium, but accidentally selected a dry tyre on the pit stop, which is why he immediately had to re-pit for a set of wet tyres. Again, we will find out sort of at the end of the race, but it is quite interesting to theory craft why sort of we have had this drop off or this 2 pit stops from Mr. Stevenson, as we do have a development in the lead battle. Andy Boardman getting bored of seeing the rear end of Nico Kumpu's P2 and comes in for the box, Jack.
Yeah, this is what we were our other theory about how this P1 fight would sort of sort out, is there would have to be some level of undercut by Andy Boardman, and he's chosen to leave himself about 11 minutes to drive in free air, and hopefully what actually should end up being an entirely empty track for these next 11 minutes, and just put in the laps. Nico Kumpu, it is now up to him, and it's pretty tough to determine how quick you must be going when you don't necessarily have that marker behind you being Andy Boardman in your mirrors. It's tough to actually, as Nico Kumpu decides to not even leave it up to chance and not leave it for 11 minutes and decides to, all right, fine, if you're gonna box now, I'm gonna box opposite, and we'll see. I mean, 1 lap undercut, the gap wasn't a lot, but it might have been enough time for Boardman to get past.
Yeah, immediately sort of getting rid of the anxiety of sort of the last 11 minutes being like, am I ahead? Have I done enough? Like, what's gone on here? And gone, I need to know right now. I need to get in the box. I need to see if the undercuts worked. And if so, hopefully maintain my track position and defend like a lion for these last 10 minutes. That does mean Theobald Roscan inherits the lead of this race. But I just want to take a quick note to Nico Kumpu's pit entry there. You see how much he was pushing on that pit entry, going so wide, almost hitting the wall. They're clearly pushing absolutely tooth and nail, even in the pit lane, to make sure they don't lose anything on their rival here. As Nico Kumpu coming out the box, and Andy Borman is rounding turn 15 and onto the final straight.
It's
Who's going to take
close.
this? It's painfully close, Jack.
I'm biting my fingers and nails here, but I mean, Kumpu's coming closer and closer. He does have a shorter sort of turn one, but Boardman goes through. Kumpu now officially out of the pits, can officially be on the power, but I think it's just going to be it's going to be too little, too late for Nico Kumpu. The undercut was enough for Andy Boardman, but let's be honest here, it's not quite over yet. I think the gap is going to be around 2 to 3 seconds, maybe even 4, and there's still 10 minutes of driving left. Kumpu knows Boardman is not invincible. He's made some mistakes, and if those mistakes happen and Kumpu runs faultless, this race could still be his.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a big undercut. Definitely a few seconds that sort of, Boardman has gapped Nico Kumpu there. 3 seconds. Whether that was just for a monstrous outlap or a potential mistake in the pit stop is something we will have to wait and see. Ash Bibi sort of giving us some information there. Kumpu had a 1 minute 16 pit stop, whereas Boardman had a 1 minute 10 second pit stop. So something's happened there in the pit stops that has made Nico Kumpu sort of lose out at this stage of the race. Could have potentially been slightly out of position on the box, or a little bit, squirrely on entry or exit. But either way, Andy Boardman, through strategy, has inherited the lead of this race.
I'm actually wondering if maybe Boardman, while sitting behind Kumpu, knowing that it was going to be a little bit tough to go past, maybe did just a tad bit of fuel saving and actually ended up taking 6 seconds is a pretty stiff margin, but one's taken less fuel than the other and just got a bit quicker in and out of your box. That could be that 6 second window that we were talking about. But it's kind of, I'll be honest, it's a little bit of heartbreak for Nico Kumpu. I was rooting for him heavy this race, but it's not over yet. Thibaut Roscam diving into the pits, deciding, that was fun leading for a little bit, but let's go ahead. Let's get into the box and let's figure out where I'm ending up on circuit and go ahead and finish these last 7.5 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see if Roscam comes out ahead of Mike Redford and inherits the P4 in this race. Another battle that's happening on track is Richard Neiman against Max Fox. All these guys have sort of previously been close to each other on track at sort of earlier on in the race, and have found themselves in the dying stages once again behind each other. 8/10 split these two orange-coloured BMW N2s. And there is nothing I love more than a little bit of last lap or sort of end of the race drama.
It's looking like we might have a little less drama than we're accustomed to, because for the first time ever, every single car has already boxed and the pit window is still open. Usually in each round so far, there's been 3, 4, 5 cars that still haven't boxed, that wait till that final lap and they sort of just dive in at the very end. I mean, I think Boardman set off that chain of events that Kumpu had to respond to and unfortunately lost out to, and Roscam thinking a similar thing, that maybe the undercut, an undercut exists, even though he himself got undercut by Shipston and Redford.
Yeah, absolutely. It does seem like Redford has that one covered off. Peter Vahler actually sitting in P6 must have got ahead of Neil Pimblott at some point in this race, and Les Stevenson has somehow found himself with an extra pit stop on a number of these drivers, sitting in P8, so a good recovery drive from Mr. Stevenson. The closest, but I say that, and I have clearly done a little bit of a commentator curse on a friend of mine. This is Kevin Boss and Les Stevenson battling out, well, not for any sort of track position. They're also having a little bit of fun and in a voice chat together, but contact there between Kevin Boss and Les Stevenson. Hopefully Les doesn't lose out any sort of on track positions there, but it looks like Kevin Boss has waited, doing the right thing, and waited to, you know, say sorry for that issue on track there. So a bit of fun between sort of teammates and friends. Sadly, Les Stevenson taking a bit of a spin in the process.
Yeah, that was another turn 6 victim. I mean, it's where we've seen most of our incidents so far, but I can only imagine the noise that Les made in that voice call with Kevin Moss, just being like, what the heck, man? I get we were racing, but you're 7 laps down. Maybe don't punt me around. But after all, it is just good fun racing between friends, and if we can't have that, then what can we?
Yeah, absolutely right. Again, just sort of echoing sort of the friendship, the camaraderie that we have here at RCI. A number of events happening on the website, and, you know, speaking from experience, it's just so much fun. Sort of the community that we have here, you know, meeting people like Les and Kev on the racetrack, becoming friends, and ultimately racing together in other events is what it's all about. So even though they've had a little bit of a bump on track, I can almost assure you that they are sort of in a voice call right now, laughing off, having a bit of fun. And, you know, Les is almost definitely egging Kevin on at this stage of the race to have another go.
I can almost guarantee that that's what they're doing, and that's what's going to happen. I'm sure, though, Les is imploring, all right, let's race, but I don't have an entirely infinite room behind me to make another mistake. So, you know, let's keep it clean, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking back to the sort of the front of the field, Nico Kumpu sort of gaining a little bit on Andy Boardman. I do think it'll be a big ask to gain that 2.5 seconds in the dying stages of this race. But definitely gaining since the pit stop sort of came out in the pits around 3.2 seconds behind. Has gained 7/10 on Andy Boardman since. I do just want to give a big shout out to someone who's had a bit of a quiet race. Obviously got past Mike Redford earlier on, but has had a brilliant race to hold on to the P3, and that is Tom Shipston. In sort of races that we've had this season, where we've seen, you know, Boardman and Kumpu essentially run away with the race and, you know, lead by an exuberant amount of money, an F1-esque leading margin that we usually see from these two. Tom Shipston, I would say, his best driver this season, especially considering it'll be his first podium of the season, but only 7.3 seconds behind P2. That's a brilliant drive from this man.
Yeah, I think a brilliant drive spurred on by watching those two fight our race. But I mean, Mike Redford, he's done well himself. He's fortunately not quite gotten himself all the way onto the podium, but there were, you know, a few mistakes, a lot of driving in traffic, a lot of going wheel to wheel that maybe slowed him down. After all, these guys are in the wet, so they're probably not on equal pace to each other that maybe they were if it was in the drive. But I cannot stress enough how impressed I am with all these drivers going wheel to wheel with each other in the wet, not being afraid of the rain, showing up today and giving us a great show.
Yeah, and it's worth calling out, you know, even with 2 minutes ago, I don't want to do one of the biggest jinx ever, but the stewards, we absolutely love them here at RCI, the live stewards that do a lot, well, almost every Monday round here on RCI, you know, give up their free time in order to live steward these races. Had a bit of an easier session today. They've only had the 2 incidences to review, one of them being the Hugo Doobie incident with Kevin Boss, which we saw a 10-second penalty sort of given to Hugo Doobie for that incident. So it's been relatively quiet in the stewards box, but once again, we absolutely love them for the work they do here. And as I'm saying that, Kevin Boss getting a 10-second for that contact with Les Stevenson. So only 3 incidences them to review, but once again, a massive shout out to our steward team for what they do week in and week out here at RCI.
I mean, that's just rubbing salt in the wound, isn't it? I mean, it was a slam dunk penalty, let's be honest with ourselves, but like, I don't know, maybe you could just be like, whatever, leave it to me. But they are professionals, they take it seriously, and well done giving a penalty to a deserved man. I mean, that was horrible what he did. Obviously joking, as Meerman was getting closer and closer behind Foxhole, and he took the the Andy Boardman line there through turn 13, just going a bit too deep, misjudging just a bit. I mean, when you see that clock ticking down and you're thinking to yourself, now or never, that tends to mistakes like that are all that easier to go. I mean, we are winding down, getting ready, Andy Boardman getting ready to start his final lap. And I think what's most important right now is we find out, Callum, I know you don't like ketchup. Clearly, what is your favorite condiment?
I don't have a favorite condiment. I'm sorry.
I think you're
My
just
favorite
dodging the
condiment
question.
is cheese.
You know, I could actually accept that answer. I think that's a good one. I think top 5 cheeses will have to be saved for another day as we're just getting ready to wind it down. Andy Boardman had it all to do. I mean, his start was anything but what he would sort of want. Briefly going 3 wide into turn 1, but just being spurred on by Nico Kumpu, who put up a mighty defense, bringing us to what ended up being the closest race of the season, the closest finish of the season. It was getting closer and closer as these rounds were getting tighter and tighter, and I'm hoping with this, level of progression, we're going to end up with a photo finish next week. But Andy Boardman, staying true to his own pace, is getting ready to make it 4 for 4. As long as he doesn't go deep into turn 13, we do not need Boardman to do the Boardman line right now. He's winding it up, entering the oval for the second to last time. Well, entering the oval-ish. Really on the banking in turn 13, but it doesn't matter. Let's see. He does get his braking point right. Beautiful, kissing the curb on the apex. Poetry in motion. Mika Kumpu actually responding just a bit, closing another couple of tenths, but it is too little, too late as Andy Boardman winds up his M2 for the final time at the final corner, getting ready to cross the line. He's done it again, ladies and gentlemen. Andy Boardman wins here at Indianapolis. Nico Kumpu coming in a well-deserved second. A true fight of champions there. Tom Shipston, a fantastic drive, crossing the line in the podium position. These guys, just stellar work from the 3 of them. Mike Redford, another one worth mentioning. Great race. Having a bit too much fun maybe before crossing the line, tagging the wall a bit, probably giving the marshals a scare. T-Bot Rosscam, P5, and a great top 5, a great fight. I mean, that's one of the closest top 5s I think we've had, and it was in the wet, and clearly the wet brings out some of the best in these drivers. Peter Varga, we talked to him last week in the box. He said he was feeling good, and here he is coming home, getting ready to come home in P6. So we're just going to jump back with Meerman and Foxhole. It's not done. It may be the 11th hour, but they're still racing left to do. Meerman getting ready. Sort of his final chance is going to be here into turn 13. He's actually closer than he's ever been. Going ahead, sticking his nose maybe in the inside, but just not having that run. It's not a long run. They both go deep. Foxhole makes an error, but I think, it's going to be too wide. Through to the final corner. It is quite literally a last lap, last corner overtake. Meerman takes P9. Foxhole says, I'm using all of this circuit, cuts the grass, giving us a little show for the end of this race. That was some good stuff.
Action all the way to the end, and Meerman doing exactly what he needed to do. Just covered that inside line looking for the attacking move, trying to get in his mirrors, and just made his opponent brake a little bit too deep, forced the error, went round the outside of turn 14 to get a better exit, and powered through turn 15 to get that P9, fighting all the way to the dying moments, Jack.
That was beautiful. I mean, that's what the M2 racing seems to be all about. It's not necessarily about raw pace. It's about forcing errors on other drivers. It's about sort of jinxing them out, getting in their mirrors, saying, "Hey, I'm here. And that was really good. I mean, props to to Meerman for not losing his nerve. And that's fantastic. That's good. That's a moment of the season, I think.
Yeah, definitely one of the moments of the season, and sadly the season coming to the end. Next week, Jack, we have our final round in Valencia. I'm going to make you do an early prediction as well as sort of a roundup for this particular race, but, who do you reckon's going to be topping the final race? Is Boardman going 5 for 5?
I mean, the rain, I think, brought it a little bit closer to Nico in terms of robbing Boardman of a bit of pace. But honestly, after the drive I saw today, it wasn't necessarily faultless, but he was so quick. I think it might be 5 for 5 next week. What do you think, Callum?
Yeah, and what a result it would be. You know what? I'm call me a glory hunter, but I'm following the Shipton hype train for next week. He had a brilliant race did today, and I want him to keep that momentum and do another great performance for the race next week. Valencia, one of the newest circuits on ACC, albeit it's been around for a while, but with that sort of being a circuit that maybe people aren't quite familiar with, it could shake up the order quite a bit for the final round of the season.
I would hope so. It's actually going to be an entirely new circuit for me. So if you enjoyed me getting lost on Zolder last week, you'll probably enjoy me getting lost on Valencia next week. But hopefully that won't happen too bad. Malk, we've sort of kept you in a corner a bit for the last sort of while. How are you feeling about that race?
I mean, it was a good race overall. I mean, there's been a decent amount of action here and there. There's a little bit of strategy play, of course, with Andy Boardman taking the win. Obviously, just by just timing the undercut correctly. That's it's very hard to do that in some cases. But no, I mean, Andy Boardman's done a good job on that. Everybody's done a really great job. Even racing in Indianapolis is one thing. Racing in the wet is a total another thing. So congratulations to everybody that's partaken on this event.
Absolutely, and I look forward to seeing you next week over hell or high water. I want to see you in that car on that grid. I want to see you making some moves. I talked you up at Zolder, and you ended up getting pretty unlucky. I'm gonna talk you up again, and really hope that you don't get unlucky. And I want to see some teeth, Malk. I want to see you go for it.
Give it a week. We'll see what happens.
It's only a week. 7 days. That's all we have to wait for what I'm hoping will be an excellent finale to this series. Callum, any final thoughts, any final words before we close out this broadcast?
Oh, there's not many thoughts that rummage around in my head, usually, Jack, but I am just reading sort of the driver's chat to see if sort of there's any insight that they can give to their race. And our theory about Kumpu stop was correct. He overshot the box and actually forgot to start the ignition as well. So an absolute time killer in the box. Probably lost a good 4 or 5 seconds in there just in his pit stop alone with those two minor errors. And that literally could have been a pixel or two overshot on the box. And the starting engine mechanic is a little bit finicky at the best of times, and that sadly has cost him the race. Those 2 minor mistakes today.
ACC can be absolutely brutal when it comes to a lot of things. I mean, the pit stops, you can't overshoot. The tires, you can't overpressure. It's intense. It's serious. It keeps you on your toes. And well, if this season is any example, leads to some absolutely fantastic racing. Did we get an answer to the Les Stevenson question? Did we figure out why he needed a different stop?
Haven't had one yet, but if I do, I will let the crew know next week.
All right. Well, we'll have to leave it there, folks. That's going to be the end of today's broadcast of the RCI Sylvia series. I've been Jack Mays, joined by Callum Kerrigan in the booth. And who could forget Mr. Ash Bibby as our fantastic, wonderful, never missing a beat broadcaster. Of course, if you want to get involved with what we do here at RCI, please head to racerci.com for info about current and upcoming events. Also, from there, you can join our Discord. Come chat with us. friendly bunch of folks. And of course, a special shout out to our partners, Ready Set Sim, for all your rig building needs, Coach Dave Delta for all your setup and coaching needs, Green Man Gaming for great savings on games, Moser Racing for high quality, well priced sim racing and flight gear, Pimax for all your VR needs, and of course, special shout outs and thanks to Motorsport UK for having us as a recommended community. One final thing that is important to mention is our great friend here at RCI, for whom this series gets his name. We race for them, and we race for everybody who may be struggling mentally or physically. You are loved, you are appreciated, and we are all wishing for better things for you just around the corner. Thank you for being here, and see you next week.
You ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Get behind the wheel, let's go. Grip the road, feel the flow. Thunder roaring, steel alive. Live this dream and drive. Tires burning with gasoline. Push the limits, chasing green. One shot, don't slow. Go on, we'll take control. Engines scream alive tonight. Blazing past the red line. Outrun the night, won't lose this fight. Follow the road, red line for show. We're chasing taillights, don't let go. Under the stars, we'll go so far. This is who we are. Chasing taillights. Chasing taillights. Chasing taillights. We're chasing taillights. The miles they fade, but they don't die. Faster now, the hours fly by. Sweat and gears, hearts in sync. On the edge, on the brink. Clock ticks down, stakes are high. One mistake, we kiss us goodbye. Don't slow down, we're not done. Finish line for the strong ones. Engines scream alive tonight. Blazing past the red line. Outrun the night, won't lose this fight. Follow the road, red line for show. We're chasing taillights, don't let go. Under the stars, we'll go so far. This is who we are. Chasing taillights. We're chasing taillights. Chasing taillights. We're chasing taillights. Feel the rush, see the goal. Every second, take control. The world blurs, time won't wait. We rise, we fight, we accelerate.